What's up, guys? I'm going to do a stream on a 109 MTT that I did yesterday or 2 days ago. That I want to say I got about 30th place. I might have got a little bit better than that. Anyway, so I went pretty deep into the tournament, and then I wanted to give you a breakdown. I put a bunch of hands. I'm going to blast through a bunch of these pretty quickly. There are some I might spend a little bit more time using Flopzilla, equity calculators, etc. So I can show you what was the most positive EV play. So if this is something that appeals to you, then let's go. So I'm going to start with the earliest hands and then break through. And I did a lot of really good plays and I did a lot of really foolish plays and just everything in between. So this is going to be really helpful for me too. But I figured I might as well let someone else on my poker study because just frankly, a lot of times they say, yeah, if you want to be a professional poker player, if you want to significantly improve your game, then you need to be studying 25% of the time. Great. What do I study? You read books, you look at videos, you do hand quizzes. Okay. What else? Well, that's where I get stuck. So I really get stuck on it when I'm playing a lot of live games because other than just me trying to remember exactly how the hand was played, the effective stacks, the raising amounts, everything like that, then I'm probably not going to remember any of that. I might remember little bits, but not enough to make it so it'll be an effective study. So yeah, this one is just 100% going to be online poker tournament where everything is saved in Poker Tracker and I can have some very accurate data. So this person who I don't know anything about because this tournament just started. I mean, we're 8 hands in and he hasn't raised first in on any of them, but he's early position and he raises. And on this one, should I call? I know I'm not going to fold, or should I raise? And I'll just be super brief on this just so it doesn't take forever. I'm just going to give you 5 seconds every time. This one, I chose to call. I probably could have re-raised, but just the fact that it seems like he's a decently tight player so far, and plus I've got position on him, then and only 38 big blinds. There's not really a gigantic reason why I should be trying to repop it, especially if he has nines, tens plus. So this one's interesting. This really threw me through a loop. This guy three bet on me, and as you'll see, he hasn't three bet yet in this tournament, and he three bet 4x on that. And what's also interesting is that this person folded. I didn't think that was going to happen. So on this one, should I call or fold or re-raise? And if I re-raise, I'd probably jam. I choose to call just because I have such darn good equity. And really, I'm hoping that I flop trips because this one, the way that he played the hand is he's almost saying that I'm ahead of you right now. He could have ace king, ace queen, ace jack suited maybe, but more than likely he has a higher pocket pair than me. So I'm just set mining right here. And believe me, I know that I don't have the equity for set mining. And if I thought it was solely set mining, then I would have just folded. But I figured there's also a decent chance that he's got strong overs. So fortunately, I flopped the world. And he c-bets into me. And you'll see that I've got 29 big blinds on this one. Should I just call and trap him? Or should I jam right here? There's certainly arguments to both, but my thought process is if he actually has overs, ace queen, ace jack, or ace king, then he is wanting to end this hand right away. There's no way in hell he's going to call a re-raise. So I choose to just trap him. And now I really hope that he has ace queen because then he's going to go for gold. He checks back, so there's no way he has ace queen. My guess is tens, jacks, or ace king. And on this one, what should I do? I still have the effective nuts. So my thought process is I only have about 60% pot bet to jam on the river. So why not just check it back and just let him bluff it me? And hopefully he's going for clubs, but I really don't think he has clubs. So complete blank. So he's either going to put out, well, and I guess he could also have aces or kings, and he thinks that he's trapping me. So on this one, he jams, which tells me he's either bluffing or he thinks that he's got some sick value bet in. But of course, I mean, there's really no way that he can know that I have the effective nuts right here. So of course I call, and let's see what he has. Good information. So he jammed with jacks, which is kind of interesting. I don't think that's the right play on there. I also don't think that he should check back. I believe in this situation, let's see, let's go back a little bit. So there's only 36 big blinds in there, and I've got 29 behind. I think that this is a really good opportunity for him to put in a blocker bet. And just in case you're not familiar with a blocker bet, it's basically where you bet really small if you've got second pair, third pair, fourth pair, and you're just doing a very thin value bet. And you also don't want someone to jam on you and then be put in a really uncomfortable situation. If he would have checked right there and I would have jammed, I don't know if he would have felt comfortable calling. He probably would have, but I can certainly see how it would just be very difficult for him. Because, I mean, unless I'm doing an absolute complete bluff on that, then I probably have him beat. So if he puts in, say, 6 big blinds, then that's a really strong position on there. And if I've got ace 8, then I'm going to call that all day, every day. And then just be in a better situation. So if he puts in 6 big blinds, of course I'm going to jam on him, and then he's going to feel either pretty decently confident about folding for the additional 15 big blinds if he's a good enough player, or he is just going to call me off anyway. If he felt that there's no way in hell he's going to fold that hand, then he might as well make it look like a bluff by saying that he missed the clubs and jam. So that might have been his thought process, but I'm willing to bet he didn't think about it that much. Okay, and I know I made a positive EV play on that one just because I flopped the world. I wish every single hand was that easy. All right, so a little bit later into the tournament, someone opens up for 2 big blinds, and I know a decent amount about this person. Their RFI is 26, which is relatively high, and it looks like this is from middle position, so I don't know much about them other than they've only done 17% in the past. So on this one, 10-9 suited. There's certainly an argument for 3-betting right here or calling, but definitely not folding. So I chose to just call once again because I have position, and and but yeah, I mean I could certainly see how I could bump that up to say 5 big blinds, 5.5. And if they chose to re-raise over the top and make it say like 13, then I can still easily call that. But no sense to insanely bloat the pot when I've got a great a great hand that plays really well post flop. So I chose to just do it this way and give the opportunities for the blinds to play. So I don't necessarily flop the world, but I sure flop pretty darn good. And the aggressor c bets and puts in about a third. Yeah, so probably about 35-40% pot. And on this one, should I raise? I'm definitely not going to fold. Or should I just call? Once again, it depends. I can do either, and both of them are really positive EV plays. Because I'm in position, I just want a smooth call and see what happens. And then, especially if these other guys decide to still play in, then I could be playing for a massive pot if I end up getting my flush. But they fold. So next card. So now I've got some showdown value. And they bet big, really big. So they bet 10 big blinds. So I'm in a difficult spot, but I'm also loving my hand because I've got a gut shot straight draw, I've got a flush draw, and I've got a pair. So my equity on this one is pretty darn good. But they also bet really heavy, which tells me that they've either got a Broadway right now and they don't want the flush to get there, or they've got ace jack. They might have ace 10 now, ace king. I don't even think ace king would bet that high. They've probably got two pair or above. So you could really go either way on this one. You could either even technically fold, but I don't like the fold on this one. So I just call so I can see what the river shows. And man, now I just rivered the world. So I've got third nuts. On this one, let's see what they do. They bet not the full amount, so I'm obviously going to stay in because this is exactly what I was hoping for. And should I raise or should I just smooth call? With the third nuts, especially considering that they more than likely have two pair and they're just hoping that two pair is good, or maybe they had queen king and they're once again just hoping that it's good, which is why they're not betting the whole amount, then I feel really good that I can pile my money in and and really just scoop down a giant pot. They call the second that they called, it's like, uh-oh, what just happened? And unfortunately, they rivered the nuts. So I'm curious on if you guys think that I should have just called. I mean, in a cash game, I would snap all day, every day, without even question, unless I know that that person's not making that play without the nuts. But on this one, I mean, with it being a tournament, I'm not that deep in the tournament, so there's no ICM implications. But I don't know. I don't know. I wonder if I just could have called. I don't know. I'd be interested to see what your thoughts are on that one. So I lost a massive pot, unfortunately. And I had like 80 big blinds on that one because of the previous hand that I showed you. But this one just cut me in half, which really sucks. All right, so next hand, I've got 42 big blinds. I have that same guy previously that opened me, and he's got 25% RFI. So decently splashy, but not out of control. And from ace 10 suited, on this one, I'm interested. I'm going to pull up my pre-flop charts and see what they say. Because, like I say, on almost every hand, you can really go either way. But, I mean, you want to have some sort of randomizing so you're not predictable. But you don't need to be 100% balanced on these tournaments in any way, shape, or form. You just don't want to be 100% predictable either. So this person opens from the hijack, and I've got ace 10 suited. And oops, no. Hijack. I'm in the big blind, ace 10 suited. Yeah, ace 10 suited shows that I should call. So, but I can certainly see raising in that position too. So I choose to just call. And the flop, it's not terrible for me. This is what we call a chicken board because he's either got a king or he doesn't have anything. And then I've also got backdoor to a Broadway and then also backdoor to nut flush. So I check and he bets relatively chunky. I mean, in tournaments, they're not really betting half pot. I mean, it just happens really rarely. They usually bet a quarter to a third. So I've got some alarm bells that are going off right here. And let's take a look at his C-bet range. I mean, yeah, he C-bets all the time. I mean, of course, this isn't enough of a lot of hands. But I know that he's a pretty splashy player. He's a pretty aggressive player. And he plays a lot of hands. So I am less cautious about that. So I'm definitely going to call. And now I picked up an awesome turn. So now there's a possibility to where it could make sense for me to lead. And he's only got 23 big blinds behind, so 2x pot. So I could very easily just put in 4 big blinds, 7 big blinds, make it really chunky. Or I could even jam on him right here. I don't really think the jam is the right play to do. And frankly, I would just overbet the pot and lead, donk lead for say 13, and then he would fold with almost every single one of his hands, except for probably king 10 or above. But he just doesn't have that many big blinds, so I don't think that's the right play. So on this one, lead or check. And if I check, should I check to check call or check to check raise? I decided to check. And he checks back, which is really interesting. I didn't see that one happening. I thought for sure he was going to put in a bet, which, what does that tell us? That he does not have a strong king. At the best, he probably has king 10, king 9, king 8. Like the absolute best. So I end up bricking. On this one, knowing that he doesn't have a super strong hand, I mean, he could have hit king 6, maybe king 7, but I still don't think he has much of a hand. My thoughts is he probably has jacks, 10s, 9s, 8s, maybe queens, maybe jacks, whatever. But I think that if I overbet the pot right here, probably 13 big blinds, he's going to fold every single one of those hands that I just mentioned. Oh, God. Okay, that's a terrible bet. That's a really, really bad bet. I shouldn't have bet that. I just gave him the opportunity to play perfectly. Every single one of those pocket pairs that I said that he could have, he's going to call with every single one of those. So of course he calls, and let's see if he's got pocket fours. Oh God, Brian. Even if I would have bet half pot, he might have folded that one. But yeah, that's 100% an overbet all day, every day on that one. So my bad. I did not play that hand well, and that's what I said. Sometimes I play hands really well. Sometimes I really don't. So on this one, ace queen offsuit. I've got only 23 big blinds. I actually lightly considered a jam right there from under the gun, but it's just too many big blinds, 25. So I just decided to open for 2.3. And I get a caller from someone who's got a pretty small stack, even smaller than me. They started the hand with 17, and they call. I don't have any stats on this person yet. So flop comes out 266. And on this one, it's very hit or miss that what are the chances that they have a 6 or a 2? Really unlikely. I mean, I guess they could have suited 3-4, suited 5-4, maybe like suited 6-5, 6-7. But I feel decently confident on it that I'm going to just bet and let's see what comes up. So I bet really small, probably 25% pot. And chances are they're just not going to call. They're just going to give up. Or, of course, if they have a better hand, they'll either call or raise. So they call, and the next card comes out king. So now that king comes out, were we ever really concerned that they had a king right here? Probably not. I mean, sure, they could have had overs. They could have had like king 10, king jack, and then they go, well, you made the bet so affordable, and I've got an over, or I've got 2 over cards, so I can suck out on the turn and get, or the river and get a really, really strong hand. So on this one, I actually decided to bet about 40% pot just because of the stack size. Because on this one, you don't just call if you've got a king jack. This one, you either jam or you fold, and unless you have pocket 6s or pocket 2s, then sure, you'll string them along and see if they're willing to triple barrel on you. But they decide to fold right there. So I figured that was a really good opportunity to get them to fold for a relatively small bet. Next one, pocket 6s. I've got 34 big blinds now because I just won that last pot. Open for 2.2 from the low jack. I get 1 caller, and then I get a gigantic razor. But she's just going all in. And we've already seen earlier that she, I think she was the one that called me with pocket 4s, if I'm not mistaken, and just went really crazy with that one. I think so. Yeah, that was. Now I'm curious. Oh no, she was the one that had the nut flush. That's right. So, But I'm also not super concerned about that because I've got a fair amount of chips. And so, really, my concern is usually when someone goes over the top and shoves with 12 big blinds, they almost always have ace king, ace queen, maybe eights through jacks, but more than likely they've got overcards. So my really only question that I have to myself is, do I call or do I shove to get this um, to isolate the caller? And I chose to just call. And plus, I figured that by just calling, this person's probably going to fold anyway because they've got a pretty weak range. Um, they're from the hijack. I mean, they're probably not making any type of a tricky play, so they choose to fold. And now it gets to heads up. Fortunately, I flop the world. Man, flopping the world, and then I river the boat. So always nice. And let's see what they have. Yep, King Jack. So not even as good as I thought that they would have had. From her position, I guess every once in a while it makes sense to jam, but she's jamming for six big blinds more. I mean, if we open for two big blinds and there's a caller, I could see this making sense for a squeeze of, say, she's got 21, 24 big blinds. But if you've only got 12, you just call like every single time and then you just see what the flop comes out with. If you get a queen or a jack or just some really raggedy board that supports your range and doesn't support the other person's range, i.e., what came out 623, but fortunately for me, that crushed what I had, not actually what my range was. So, in yeah, in this situation, she totally should have just called and then just see what happens, and then maybe try a check jam or just do a stop and go and just try to jam right on the flop. Obviously, it wouldn't have worked in this situation, but it would have been interesting to see someone try that. All right, next hand. Now I've got 58 big blinds, so I'm cruising. I'm into a much better spot. I choose to do a pretty solid open, and the reason why is because I've got this goon over here that's just limping on me. And I don't allow limpers in my game unless I'm on the big blind. I mean, limping is an extremely weak play, in my opinion. I know some GTO play recently has been saying, hey, maybe you should throw in some limps every once in a while, but I can't get behind it, especially on these types of games. There's no use for it. So ace nine offsuit. I choose to get a little splashy because it's only ace nine off. That's not fantastic, but I've also been playing relatively aggressive, and these people have been folding to me the majority of the time. So I get the ideal situation. I get the limper to call my raise and call it out of position. So regardless of what the flop comes out, I feel like I've already won. This person checks over to me. I'm going to bet this hand every single time just because it's a chicken board. I don't even need to wait a few seconds to see what I should do or for you guys to help me decide what to do because this one's a no-brainer bet for me every single time. The question is, how much do I bet for? I'm going to bet a quarter pot because I'm going to bet a quarter pot whether I have a five, a queen, jacks, aces, or absolutely nothing like I do. And then I get a call. And next card comes out fantastic. So checks over to me. I mean, I felt really good about this. I mean, sure, it's possible that they have a queen, but I doubt it. So I'm going to bet a little bit bigger on this one because now I've got top pair. Oh, okay, never mind. I guess I chose to pot control. And one of the reasons why I chose to pot control is not because I feel I have an inferior hand, but because I feel that this is a good opportunity for him to bluff at me. And especially since he's an early position limper, the chances of him betting with rags is pretty likely and just overplaying his hand. So he bets half pot, and this is just screaming for a call. So have to call. And unfortunately, he had trip queens. So crap. He actually played that hand really well. So kudos on that. And yeah, he got paid. And I'm sure glad that I did pot control on the turn. That saved me a little bit of extra money. Not a lot, but a fair amount. Next hand. Ooh, did I see that? Holy crap, I've only got 22 big blinds now. I don't know what just happened. Fortunately, woke up with pocket jacks on the under the gun. Now, I'm certainly not going to jam on this one because it's just too good of a hand, and I want to have a caller or two. So I just get one caller, and once again, it's a chicken board, and I also have an overpair, so I'm definitely going to bet on them. So I bet a little bit less than half pot, but you'll see that it's a little chunkier. I mean, it's probably about 40% pot because I want this person to re-raise me ideally and just put all my stack in. I'm gonna call in a second all day every day unless I have a severe tell with them. But I mean, look at this guy. He's RFI 67%. I don't believe anything that what he has. There we go. He re-raises. Love this re-raise. So on this one, should I call or should I jam? I just call because I want to see what develops on there and I want to give him one more opportunity to bluff. Because if I decide to jam for 13 more big blinds, then I mean, it would be I would be jamming 13 into a 33 big blind or a 33, yeah, 33 big blind pot. And he would frankly have to call in another 13 big blinds with 46 big blinds in pot, which means that it would be like about a 28% of an equity call for him. So not that hefty, but if he's just betting with blanks, then he's going to fold. So I choose to check back to him. I easily could have jammed right here, but that's not the point. I want him to jam right here because really the only play for him is to jam with me only having 13 big blinds. So I want him to continue to sell his bullcrap story. And I mean, more than likely he has hearts, but knowing this type of guy, he has nothing. He probably has ace high and he's just trying to get me off his hand. So he jams. I snap call. I couldn't have called faster. But now the hearts got theirs. I'm like, oh crap, what the heck did he have? And check out what he has. Pocket nines. That's it. So it's a really weird line for him to take that move by raising the flop when you have an under pair, when you have second pair. I mean, that's a smooth call all day, every day. He could have, he more than likely his stack would have gone in either way, but I think he would have been slowed down a little bit once he saw the hearts. I don't know. I don't know. But it's a really aggressive move from a really aggressive player. So you love having those players. All right, so this person jams for 9.7 big blinds, and I've got 40 big blinds. So I really only, well, I have two moves that I can do on here. I've got the super wildly aggressive person that was on that last hand, and I really want to get this person involved, but I also don't like playing jacks out of position unless it's against this guy like I just did. So I choose to jam on this one. Looking back on it, I probably shouldn't have jammed. I probably should have just called so he could have thought, oh, great, here's an opportunity for me to do a squeeze play. But yeah, he folds. So my bad. I probably shouldn't have done that. And more than likely, this flipping for fun with him only having 10 big blinds from the relative early position. I mean, he's probably jamming with 20% of his range if he's doing it the right way. So he could virtually have anything. And King 9 suited. So I took him on that one, but I get the feeling I could have taken him for a lot more if I would have remembered that that's a super wildly aggressive person directly to my left. I should have just called. So I left money on the table. Okay, ace, king, early position. Of course, I'm going to open. I could have opened for 3 big blinds, 2.5, 2.1, whatever. Doesn't really matter. And so I've got 50 big blinds to start. I've got the wildly aggressive person to call, which excites me always. And then I've got a new guy that I don't know much about. Seems like he's a relatively tight player, and from the cutoff, he calls me. And I don't get a great flop. This is a flop that more than likely I should just, well, I could really go two ways on this one. I could bet on this one, and more than likely I've got a better hand than them, than both of them currently. And I could even be doing an equity bet, which I know sounds crazy when it's only an ace high, but they could just have so many hands. Um, but I mean, they could have 10-9, Jack-9, 8-9, whatever, and call me, but then still not feel too great about their hand if I continue to bet. So on this one, I chose to bet small and just to see really what everyone has. And I only get one caller, the wildly aggressive person. So I actually still feel like I'm ahead, but not sure. So maybe it's time to do a little bit of pot control action. So he bets a little crazy and almost half pot, so probably about 40 to 45%. And on this one, is it time to give up my big slick? Do I call thinking I'm ahead and or do I call thinking I'm behind and hopefully I can get a pair? I called thinking that he's wildly aggressive. He would do that with absolutely anything, and I'm probably still ahead. But fortunately, I just got top top. So on this one, should I lead into him or should I just let him bet wildly aggressive again? Okay, I'm so glad I did this because you totally don't want to donk lead on the river into a wildly aggressive person that has already been putting all these wild bets out there. So I wanted him to bet into me, and I figured that more than likely he was going to bet. And he did. Thank God. So he bets huge. So with this one, him betting almost pot. Oh, that's right. This single play just significantly changed my tournament. Should I just smooth call, or should I try to get the rest of my money in? Yeah, I just smooth called just because it's such a massive pot already, 64 big blinds, that if I raise, then what am I hoping will call? Ace Jack, Ace 10, it might call. But I mean, even with a super wildly aggressive person, the chances of him having better than this, it's certainly possible. And if he was slow playing Queen 9, and I just put myself into a really bad position and completely knock me out of the tournament because he's got me, I might as well just smooth call and get an extra read on him, and then also scoop a massive pot if I'm right. He did this with pocket fours. Now, poker pros do this, that they can turn their weak pairs into a massive pot. He's not doing that because he's a poker pro. He's doing this because he doesn't know the crap he's talking about. But there's no way he's calling if I jam, unless he's really that bad of a player, which might be. Totally might be. All right. So this next one, now I've got a chunky amount of chips. Not a ton, though. But someone jams into me with 15 big blinds. They could really have anything. The I would say any suited ace, any suited Broadway, and frankly any pair, but definitely any pair like fours or fives plus, and probably ace 10 offsuit plus. Those are the hands that should be jamming right there. So my only guess is, do I just call or do I jam? And keep in mind, I've still got that goon on my left, and he's almost out of chips. So I could really go either way, but seeing as how it's only a 2x raise, I might as well just jam. Damn it, he folded. I probably should have just called. I don't think he would have called me. Who knows? And yeah, this guy had the absolute bottom of his range. And which is crazy that that freaking 7 came out because I was stoked on this hand until I realized, are you kidding me? I just lost. So yeah, he ended up with the straight with a very, very weak hand. But like I was saying, that is one of the hands that he could play, but that was like the very, very bottom of his hand that he should be jamming with. So, oh well, it happens. Okay, I've got about 5 or 6 more hands left. And you'll see that I got quite a few good cards on this tournament. And I've still got the same goon on my left, and I could easily just jam and get everyone to fold, but I don't want to do that, not with this strong of a hand. So I choose to make it 2.3, which is a little bit stronger than I've been doing before. I'm actually shocked that that bada bing guy folded because he's not the type of person to fold hands pre-flop, but unfortunately he did. All right, so big blind calls me, and it's great flop for me. He checks. I'm definitely going to bet. So should I bet a third, half, overbet? I'm certainly not going to overbet because I want someone with sevens, eights, nines. Actually, realistically, if they had sixes or higher, then they just would have jammed on the flop. So I'm not really concerned with a pocket pair. Really, what I'm hoping that he has is ace jack, 10 jack, 9 jack, queen 9, queen 8, something like that. So I bet relatively small, probably about 40% pot, because I want him to call me out of position, and he does. So that tells me that I'm definitely ahead, and that he probably has a jack or a queen, and probably not a strong one. So do I jam on this one? No, I don't jam on this. I want to go 3 streets, and I want him to stay in with everything that he has. So I choose to make it about 40% pot again. I'm really, really hoping that he calls again, because if he does, then that's going to leave him only 12 big blinds, and the pot would be about 22 bigs. So that would make it very, very affordable for him to call a jam if he check calls on the river. But unfortunately, he folds. I probably, hindsight, should have done maybe like about 2.9 big blinds, 2.6, because that would have given him so much of an opportunity to stay in. Because maybe he had king 10 or 10-6, not 10-6, like 10-8, 10-9. Nope, 10-9 would have, no, actually, yeah, that all would have been good for him to continue with, for me at least. All right. So now I'm in, I've got 40 big blinds, and I'm in the middle position. Definitely going to open for this one, Jack 9 suited. So I do a standard 2.7, and I've got the goon, and he's only got 19 big blinds to start the hand, and he raises, and his raises mean absolutely nothing to me. So I actually prefer them. So on this one, it's really, do I just call and see what comes out on the flop and play it from there, or do I jam on him? I'm obviously not going to fold. There's no way. I wouldn't fold this hand really to anyone, but especially not to this guy. I choose to just call so I can see what happens. So I flop what I call the world. This is the effect of nuts on a guy like this. So I'm, you know what? I actually probably should have just checked. I think I just got so excited that I had such a strong hand that it would be 50% against anybody, but against him it's like 98% that it's a win. So obviously I'm not gonna donk on this one. I should have just checked and let him bet. Fortunately, he chooses to jam, and that is music to my ears. I can't believe he did that. So, and even better, I end up with the flush. I mean, did he have ace 10? Like, what the crap did he have? Oh, wow. He actually had a really good hand. So, yeah, who would have thought? I mean, bad players get good hands every once in a while. It happens. So, good call on my part. Okay. That's why it's so important to know the people that you're playing against. Because if they're wildly aggressive people, then just just play them like they're wildly aggressive people and just call wide and raise wide and just really take advantage of them in certain spots. And even if they have a big hand, then they'll probably get caught up on because that's just the way the cookie crumbles sometimes. All right, so I've got someone who does a min raise and what I find to be a relatively strong player. And I don't think I had really any notes on them. No, not really. So it's got a pretty wide range currently, although I haven't played with them that much. But in the big blind on this one, should I call or should I raise? We're pretty darn deep stacked, and we're already in the money now. So you could do either. I like a call, which is what I did. And I mean, the flop sucks. I don't love it, but I'm probably going to stay in. It's definitely a check. Certainly not going to lead on a flop like that. That'd be suicide. And they check back, so I'm pot controlling a little bit. And I've got fourth pair now, which I love it. And I also have both of these blockers for the flush. So my thoughts are she either has one of these pairs, or he either has one of these pairs, or overcards, or maybe a draw, maybe like an ace, a 10. So I check again, check back. All right, so this is showing me that she may have a pair of sevens. She probably doesn't have jack, queen, or king, or else he would have put in something. So it's either a pair of sevens or an underpair or ace high. So what this is a perfect opportunity with fourth pair for me to just put in a blocker bet. Probably about, I'm guessing I did like 1.2 to 1.6 big blinds because this is just screaming I want to call, but it's also looking at the pot odds and saying, crap, I can't fold this because all I have to do is be right 14% of the time. So I put in 1.25, I get a call. And by the way, if you do this 20 times in a tournament, that's going to make such a massive difference. And just thin value bets and blocker bets, I mean, this is something that I've just recently learned about over the past few weeks. It's huge. It's been helping me go much farther in tournaments. And look at this. They rivered a 4, and they called with such a small bet. So that's strong. That's what you got to do. Okay, I've got 40 big blinds now. Now we're really deep into the tournament. I want to say like the top 185 people ended up cashing, and we're about down to the final 90. So this person opens for 2.1, folds over to me, and I don't know a ton about this person other than they're relatively splashy, but not out of control. And on this one, should I raise or should I call from the big blind or from the small blind? I also don't know about a ton about this player, but I certainly wouldn't be upset if they called. And then I just had a couple other players in there. So I'm just going to smooth call because, I mean, this person with 15 big blinds, more than likely their stack is going to get in on this hand. And I frankly don't need to raise pre-flop. So I'm surprised that that person folded. I mean, they had 15% equity to call that. So they should have really called with even 7-2 offsuit. That gives them enough equity. But I digress. So I love this flop. I don't love it as a bet, but I definitely love it as a pot control hand. And bet's strong. Bet's a little bit over half pot. So on this one, should I just call back? Or should I raise and get it all in? But I'm definitely not going to fold. But sure, he could have a jack, but there are just so many draws out there. He could have 5-7, 5-3, and frankly, he wouldn't have these hands unless they're suited, unless he's a jackass of a player. But more than likely, he's got 8s, 7s, 5s, 3s, 2s. Broadway cards, or he frankly just looks at this like I would normally look at a this type of board and say, great, they probably missed. And let's put in a more than half pot bet, get them to fold, and move on to the next hand and scoop up the blinds and also their call. So I choose to just call with my pot controlled hand. Now I hate this flop. I hate this turn. Because now the flush got there, and now I've got third pair. But I'm still going to go a little bit pot controlled and just check. I just want to see what they do because they've got a pot size bet that they can put in there, and they choose to check back. It's definitely saying that they don't have a strong jack, because if I would have had good spades on there, then I would have just jammed. I would have just check raised all in. So I don't think if they're even a decent thinking player, then they're definitely not thinking that I have a flush. And if they have a strong jack, then they don't want to just check back and see another spade come out and then be like, okay, great, well, now I probably lost. Or now I just really don't know where I am. So on this one, it's showing me that they have an under pair. Maybe they just hit a 10, but more than likely they've either have ace high, they've got Broadway cards, and now they've picked up a draw, or they've they've got a relatively small pocket pair. So the river comes out. This is, I don't know if you guys have figured this out yet, but is this a perfect opportunity to do? A blocker bet. And what's a blocker bet? About 1/6 pot, roughly. Even if you're like a Michael Adamo player where you're a super high roller, one of the best in the world, if not the best in the world, then they do 1/10 pot, 1/12 pot, which is crazy. But I'm not that good of a player. So I'm going to just keep it right around 1/6 pot. So this one's probably about 1/5 pot. Yeah, it's 1/5. And this is the perfect opportunity for someone with a 6, a 4, a smaller pocket pair than me to call. But they fold. So they probably had ace high, or they probably just had a missed Broadway. So maybe I could have bet one big blind, so just 1/12 pot like a Michael Adamo move. They're like, well, crap, now I need to call with ace high because I've got 1 in 14 chance that you have absolutely nothing, which is pretty good odds. All right, 3 more hands, and I've got 40 big blinds. Now we're really deep into the tournament. I think there's probably about 60 people left. Got pocket nines. I do a standard open. And the person calls me with really small stack, which really surprises me. What the crap are they doing? So they're out of 17 hands. They have RFI'd never, and they have even called almost never. Like I have almost no stats off them because they're so stinking tight. So with them just calling and not jamming over the top, if they would have jammed over the top, it's a snap call because that shows that they have overs. And sure, they could have me beat, but probably not. So with them just calling, I'm slightly nervous. And I'm even more nervous with this flop because this flop is terrible for my hand. But I've got second pair. I could very easily do a pot control and just check back. But if they're just checking right here, and with them not jamming over the top with ace king suited, ace queen suited, ace jack suited, ace 10 suited, they would really be doing that with every single one of those hands. They would be jamming instead of just calling. Then that shows me that they probably don't have a flush. They might have one card for it. So my thought process is I'm just going to lightly breathe on this board and just see what happens. I'm going to put in a really small bet, and they fold. So fortunately, because I didn't want to see any other cards come out because I had no idea where it was on that one. All right, so 2 more hands. 30 big blinds. It's probably down to about 40 people. And this guy's still in somehow. All right, so standard open, min open, and I'm going to call all day, every day. There's really no reason for me to re-raise right here. And so now I really like my hand because this is one of those chicken boards, slightly a chicken board. I mean, it's more possible that someone could have a king or that someone could have a queen. So I'm just going to pot control on this one and check over to them. And frankly, if they check back, then I'm going to assume that I have the effective nuts because I also have backdoor flush draw. And they check back. So now I feel really good about this. Let's take a look at, see, the fact that they see bet, well, it's not off of a lot of stats, but they see bet more often than they don't. Then I'm thinking, well, if they've got something, then they're probably betting right here. But they just check back. So now I've got a flush draw. And I decide to check again because I still don't feel great about my hand. I've got third pair, nine kicker, but I've got a flush draw. So I just really need my flush draw to get there. So he bets 2.92, which is a little concerning to me. I mean, it's about 60% pot. That's kind of telling me like he possibly could have some slow played queens, and now he really doesn't want flush to get there. But I just have so many options on there, and you'll see that I've got 72% over his range. So I choose to call, and then the five comes out. So nothing got there. So I don't love my hand. I mean, I'm gonna check again, and he bet so small. I mean, I'm trying to wrap my head around this, but if you look at this, he did such a smart bet because he made it. So if I bet, let's see, because I call him, and 16.99. What this is telling me is that I only have to be right 16% of the time. If he has a queen, if he has a king right here, then oh well, he wins. But it's showing me that even if I lose this particular hand, I only need to be right one out of six times. So I can be wrong four other times and be right one time and then still be positive EV. So it's unfortunate if I'm not right on this one. But yeah, unfortunately he played slow played queen, so well done. That was a super strong play and dropped me down to 23 big blinds. But I would probably do that every time. And here was the last hand that I played. So I think you can figure out how it ends for me. So 20 big blinds. Technically, on the push fold chart, it's saying I frankly, I don't know your thought process on this, but I don't love using the push fold chart unless I'm 15 bigs or less. But I've got a push fold chart that shows 20 bigs or less that I got off of pokercoaching.com. Thank you, Jonathan Little and team. But technically, it's saying that I should jam with pocket fours from, let's see what it is, from the hijack with 20 bigs. But I don't know. I mean, we're down to about 30 people left in the tournament, and I'm I'm about 4x on my money, so doing pretty well. But this is when the times when you just really start ramping up in chips. So I don't know. I'm wondering if I should have just jammed right here, but there's just such strong ICM implications. I mean, if I hold out for another, say, half hour, I might go double up in value. So I I don't like a jam right here. So I chose to just do a small open. And if someone raises me, then hey, that's when I ditch my hand and get away. But no one jams, no one raises, and I hate this flop. So I check back. So now I'm thinking, all right, well, maybe they have 8-9 suited, Jack 10. Actually, they'd probably even bet with Jack 10. So they probably just have some lower cards. I mean, I guess they could have 6-7 suited, 8-7 suited. But either way, I still don't love this hand. But my thought process is, well, why don't I just try to bet small on this one, and then I can try to represent a weaker ace, and then maybe tens, jacks, queens. But they call. I really don't love this call because it's not good for me. But I check back because I know that I've lost. And frankly, I just got to fold. I mean, if they've got a better hand than me, well, kudos. But there's no way I'm calling that hand. So I guess I didn't. That wasn't the last of my hand, but that was the last significant one. I think. Oh yeah, that's right. The very last hand that I had probably 10 big blinds, and I was on the cutoff, and I had a six offsuit, which is a snap jam every single time, unless there's severe ICM implications, like final table severe. So I jammed. I got called by ace two offsuit, and a two came out on the flop. So it happens. So it happened with me in Vegas when I did the Salute to Warriors tournament. When I rejammed with kings and then pocket twos called, and a two came out on the flop. So that's been the bane of my existence recently. So anyway, I hope you guys gained some information off of that, and please comment, like, subscribe, whatever. And I'm going to start putting these up regularly because I was only doing this off of OBS and just Twitch streaming, but I can't seem to get that to work anymore. So now I'm just going to put every single one of these over to YouTube. So anyway, have a great day, guys.